Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. When I was 23, I came across an amazing and short summary, one-pager, about personal finance. And it's so amazing, and it totally transformed my life. And it is so simple, but not simplistic. Nothing more, nothing less, it's just right and just all you need, really. Hey, my name is Derek. I'm a product manager at one of the FANG companies, and I'm also an MBA graduate from one of the top 10 business schools in the US. So, if I hadn't seen this one pager, my life would have been a very different situation, probably way worse. I like to call this Personal Finance 101. It really opens up a whole new fascinating world when I first landed my tech job as a software engineer and need to really figure out how to deal with the overwhelming financial decisions as a young adult. So by the end of this video, you will be probably more financially savvy than 90% people out there when it comes to personal finance. And now, let me show you what that means. So now this actually comes from a book by Scott Adams, the Dilbert guy. And let me just read it first, and then we're going to unpack that. Very short, right? Just one page. Everything you need to know about personal investing. First, make a will. Second, pay off your credit card balance. Third, get a term life insurance if you have a family to support. 4, fund your company's 401k to the maximum. 5, fund your IRA to the maximum. 6, buy a house if you wanted to live in a house and can afford it. And then, put 6 months of expense in a money market account. Finally, take whatever money left, invest 70% of that into a stock index fund and 30% of it in a bond fund. Just do it in a very discount brokerage company and never touch it again until retirement. Now, if any of those confuse you, or you have something special going on, retirement, college planning, tax issue, pay a fee-based financial planner. That's it. Not someone who charges you a percentage of your asset or your portfolio. Now, the funny thing is that he continued and say, everything else you wanted to do with your money is going to be a worse idea compared to what it's on that one-pager summary. You want an annuity, it's worse. You want a whole life insurance, it's worse, right? If you want to invest in individual stocks, it's going to be worse. You want a hedge fund or a managed mutual fund, it's going to be worse. So, you get it. Well, first of all, let's just unpack all of them. It's just so simple, but it's so powerful. Know that personal finance is indeed really, really personal, but the advice here is so decent and as a starting point and just lay out the overarching framework. And you can fine tune your approach later and differently once you fit that into this framework. And let's just unpack them one by one. Make a will. Well, this is the simple way to control how you distribute your wealth. This will be useful if you have a loved one that you wanted to support and also or have a lot of assets because you don't want other people to control how you distribute your own money. Then pay off your credit card balance. Compounding, as many people talk about it, can work wonders. But it cuts both ways, right? In a financial system, basically, in the simplified version of it, your expense is actually another person's income. If someone's income is growing exponentially because of credit card interest, then basically means someone is paying the credit card payment, and that is also growing exponentially. So pay the full amount and don't let any interest to have a chance to kick in. Insurance. Now, if you have a family to support, get a term life insurance. That could be a very good idea, but it needs to be a term life insurance, not whole life, not index life, not universal, no, nothing, right? Now, if you do get a whole life insurance, and it's very likely that in the end you might regret. Don't ask me how I know about that. And then fund your 401k to the maximum. If you cannot do that, at least contribute up to your employer's match. I personally prefer pre-tax 401k to defer tax to a later time because I expect that down the road I probably will be falling into a lower tax bracket. But especially if you're a high earner, you might also want to consider after-tax 401k with a Roth 401k conversion, and that could be a really decent option to put your money into investing. And then fund your IRA to maximum. Yes, You can contribute to IRA in addition to your 401k. In fact, if you're a high earner, invest in your traditional IRA and then convert it to Roth IRA immediately with the mega backdoor. And later will let your money grow tax-free. And then buying or renting. If your house is 100% of your primary residence, meaning that you're not going to rent a part of it out or through Airbnb or whatever, then it is more a lifestyle choice than an investment. For most people in major metropolitan area, renting is actually cheaper than buying, even though a lot of people talk about American dream, and I felt the same. When I was a teenager and when I was college student, I just felt like, yeah, I don't know where that notion come in that you kind of need to have a big house, live in a suburb, have a wife, have 2 kids, have a dog, 2 cars, something like that. I don't know whether that is really realistic. I think the definition of the American dream need to evolve as well. So anyways, if you really wanted to live in a house, do check out the New York Times renting and buying calculator. Just run your number before you make a decision. Buying a house is more of a 2-way door decision than a 1-way door decision because it's very, very difficult if you wanted to undo it. It will be costly. You can sell it, yes, but it's gonna be very high friction anyways. Now, finally, put 6 months worth of expense in a money market account. Now, this will be your emergency fund. 2 things to highlight here. 1, you should probably put it in a money market fund or high yield savings account, whatever, just to receive high interest rate that is comparable to the treasury bill, to just ensure that your money is not losing because of inflation. So make sure that you're well protected against inflation. And ideally, you can raise that from 6 months to 12 months, and that's actually what I wanted to do, because you probably have a better line of sleep anyways. And you might ask, what are we saving for? Well, that's a very deep question. Like, why are you saving for that 6 months if you have stable job and things like that? The honest answer, but a really profound answer, is that we don't know, but you have to save it. Let me tell you why. There is something in the world that we don't know what it is, but it is actually certainly it will happen. I'm talking about one of those 100-year events. 100-year event could be COVID, could be some natural disaster, could be war, could be a Great Depression, for example. By the way, that happens around 100 years ago. Now, 100-year event means that the event can happen with 1% chance in a given year. What does that mean? Well, it sounds like really low probability, right? But let me tell you, stay on for a minute. If you think about it, that is just one event. What if you have 1,000 possible events that might happen with 1% chance a year? What is a chance that some of it might happen in a year, in a given year? Let's say if they're independent, just be generous, they're independent. Most likely they're not. Actually, it's probably higher than what you think. Let's do some high school math. So let's say there's 10 possible 100-year event, and the probability that at least one of them will happen in a given year is actually pretty high. It's close to 10%. Well, that's, kind of high. Well, wait, there's more. What if there's 100 of those 100-year events, right? 100 distinct 100-year events. What is the likelihood of that at least one of them happen this year? Well, actually, that's 63%. Why? Well, because do the math, right? Well, the math basically says you basically take the probability that none of them will happen, which is 0.99 times 0.99 times 0.99 for 100 times, right? And then that is nothing will happen. The complement of that, the opposite of that, means at least one event will happen. 1 minus 0.99 raise it to the power of 100. And that turns out to be 63%. So it's actually higher than 50-50. Now, wait, that's more. How about there were 100 those distinct 100-year events? Well, actually, that might happen 100% of the time in a given year. Of course, not all of those 100-year events will hit you, will directly impact you. But chances are those things would happen. And because the world is super well connected, and it's actually very likely that if one severe event happened, and that might impact you some way, one way or the other. The more convincing argument and more comprehensive argument about that can be found in Morgan Housel's book, Same as Ever. Super recommended you read it. Take whatever money is left over and invest 70% of it to a index fund and 30% of it to a bond fund in a discounted brokerage account, and never touch it until retirement. Now there's 3 beautiful points that are packed in this short sentence. First, 70-30 portfolio is actually a very decent portfolio to balance both growth and also the market crash protection. Second, index fund. Now, the key point is passively managed fund with low management fee, aka expense ratio. This is an excellent choice because it usually outperforms the active managed fund in the long term, and it's cheaper, so it allows you more money to compound over time. Third, never touch it until retirement. This is actually funny, but true. If you can actually forget your password and never log into your brokerage account and just let it reinvest the money and compound, that is something I would call very successful investing. Fidelity actually did a study earlier that the investors who do not log into their account for a very long time, it's possible that they forgot their account. Like, it's possible that they forget their password. Those people, they perform much, much better than the one who check the account regularly. Now, you can argue whether it's a causation or correlation. If you understand the long-term and short-term market mechanism, it actually makes sense. Like, the people who just set it and forget it probably have a much better long-term performance than the ones that checking the account regularly. If any of these confuse you, you have something special going on, retirement, college planning, etc. Hire a fee-based financial planner and not charge any of the percentage of your portfolio. If you need to hire one, pay the flat fee, because the value exchange is much clearer, right? You are paying for their service. You're paying for the advice, period. Now, the problem with charging a percentage of your portfolio is that the value exchange become complicated and becomes so unclear because they could be getting some commission by selling you some of the investment products that might underperform the market in the long term. And that could cost you a lot in the long term. So just make a very clean-cut transaction with financial planner. But for most people, I don't recommend that you outsource your financial management. I think everyone should manage their finance on their own. It is actually very easy, just like Scott Adams was talking about, right? All you need is this one-pager summary. Now, overall, I think these bullet points are very solid approach, and I want to share to you the backstory about this. So, according to Scott Adams, he initially wanted to write a book about personal investing and personal finance, but after I've done a bunch of research, very extensive research, he concluded that actually there's not much. Everything can be boiled down to this one-pager summary. And then he was like, yeah, maybe I can publish a one-pager book, but nobody will really buy a one-pager book, right? So instead, he published those bullet points in a book, Dilbert and the Way of Whistle. It's funny, but it's true. But it's true. So, if you wanted to learn more simple and useful ideas to grow your financial literacy, check out the next video somewhere.